Can you address the issue of those that are eating a diet high in fruit, and your opinion on that?
Well, it's more than a short question. So I've been looking at this in terms of diabetes and kind of gotten into a whole field that's emerging. And what we're seeing is a high carbohydrate diet is the least healthy diet. It's not just food, it's also grains. Fruitarians would say, well, that's okay, we don't have grains. But fructose is a problem. More than 15 grams of fructose runs as 15 to 25 grams, that's 2 bananas worth, starts to create a fructose imbalance. Fructose, cancer cells need 10 to 50 times the amount of glucose, and I say glucose, not fructose, and they're even more activated by fructose. So that's the best sugar for feeding cancer. Fructose is also associated with inflammation of the glia cells of the brain, a factor of 10 times more than glucose. So we don't want inflammation in the brain. Fructose is also associated with, again, I'm going to tell you, I got to make it clear, 15 to 25 grams of fructose is not a problem. And I don't want people saying Gabriel's against all fructose. That is not the truth. Okay? 2 bananas, you're close to your fructose limit. But, so let's get clear. There's healthy amounts and unhealthy amounts. So at the level of unhealthy amounts, we're talking about a major liver problem. It's called non-alcoholic fatty liver. About a third of Americans have it. It's directly related to the fructose. Now, is it related just to high corn syrup fructose? No. It's related to the total amount of fructose. Obviously, high fructose corn syrup has tipped the scales. So now it's an epidemic of fatty, non-alcoholic, degenerative fatty liver. What's going on? Fructose high again, higher than your 25 grams, 15 to 25 grams, is associated with gout. And so the list goes on, and that's not even the way I want to take it. That's part of the way I want to take it. What we also look at is high fructose has been associated with diabetes, although initially they'll say it's not, but research is suggesting that. But we're also looking at longevity, and the people who live the longest have the lowest amount of leptin and insulin, fasting leptin, fasting insulin. And the people on a high complex carbohydrate diet and in a simple carbohydrate diet have higher levels in general. Now, we got another thing, because we find that this really gets into a fat discussion, okay, which is much more interesting than fructose, because it's kind of the key, is that we want, for optimum energy and longevity, to switch to fat metabolism. We get twice the amount of calories, and we burn fat. Now, most people want to lose weight, so it's not a big problem. The carbohydrate system for energy is really the emergency system, but we're using it as our regular system. So when we switch over to fat metabolism, which is training our body by taking a higher amount of fat, when I want to say fat, I have to distinguish between saturated animal fat, trans fatty acids, all of which are very detrimental. We don't want to confuse those. It's like table salt and salt. We don't want to confuse those. But we're saying raw, organic, nuts and seeds, avocados, like avocado, which is a monounsaturated fat. Fascinating. Avocado's been associated with a drop of 17 points in cholesterol. It's been associated with weight loss. It's been associated as a cardioprotective. Isn't that interesting? Walnuts. About 8 to 16 walnuts a day have been associated with 70% less heart disease, and have been specifically associated with enhanced repair of the inside of the arteries, called the intima. So we have some very interesting cases, studies coming out showing almonds, about 5 ounces a day, because they really pushed it, showed a 21 to 23% drop in different levels of cholesterol. All that's really interesting. My point in a simple way is it looks like the healthier diets are diets that are going to have high in natural fats and low in carbohydrate and a little bit higher in protein. But according to your constitution, some people who actually are successful as fruitarians usually are extreme slow oxidizer or extreme sympathetic, meaning their ability to process carbohydrate is genetically limited, and they need a lot more carbohydrate to make the energy systems work. So I don't want to tell a person who is extreme, let's say poor, not pathological, okay, but poor carbohydrate metabolism, poor ability to get energy out of that. I don't tell them not to take carbohydrates. And I think what we're going to see is, a certain percentage of the population is actually going to need to be high on, your carbohydrates to function properly. When we're looking at the bell curve. So I want to also add that in, because there's no an absolute here. But the trend for the middle of the bell is going to be 40% of your calories from natural unprocessed fats, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and even I just ran across a study of a group of indigenous people living in the equator, and 50% of their calories comes from saturated fat. Oh, wow, it's coconut fat, saturated fat. Now, that's interesting. What's interesting is they have no heart disease, no diabetes, and no cancer. That's what's interesting, because it flies in the face of all the low-fat, scare stuff that's going on. So there's a longer discussion there. Okay, we've got 5 more minutes here. Next question. I want to footnote the fruitarian question is that I in no way want to discourage people if they find that's the thing that works best for them over the years, because there is a certain percentage of people who, maybe it's 2% or 1% of vegans, it's going to be really good for them. Okay, but the problem that I'm most concerned about is that 1% is telling everybody else that's the best diet for the other 99%. That's where we get into problems. And a lot of people get hurt doing that.